If you want to become an entrepreneur in 2024, do not do a startup, do this instead. If you're anything like me, when I was working at my law firm job, I worked very, very hard to get that job. And in very short order from getting it, I knew that I hated it and I wanted to do something else. But I spent all this time wrapping up my identity and being a lawyer. And I thought that the best thing to do, knowing that I didn't want to be a lawyer, was to become an entrepreneur. So, probably like you, I spent all this time consuming all this entrepreneur content on YouTube, on Instagram, following all these entrepreneurs that talked about how easy it is, about how you just got to have balls, how you got to go for the grind, I have to do all this stuff. And for me, I was giving up a job that I was making $180,000 a year for, but I felt like if I just went for it, that I could have everything that I wanted. And so in this video, I'm going to go over some of the dumbest shit that people say about quitting their job to do a startup, and why instead of a startup, you should really do a side bet, and what that is and how you can do it differently. So there are four things to really think about when you are wanting to become an entrepreneur. One is, how much risk are you taking? What do you stand to lose? Two is, how much money can you potentially make? What do you stand to gain? Three is, how much control do you have over your life? Most of the time, we're frustrated in our job because we feel like we don't fully control our financial outcomes and what we do with our time on a daily basis. Four is purpose. How close do you feel like you're getting to finding your purpose in life? Even if you make all of the money in the world, if you feel like you're not doing something that is uniquely yours to do, that's close to your purpose, you'll still feel unhappy. And so this is all about finding work that A, makes money, that we don't lose a bunch of money, we don't have this massive risk, but also gets us closer to feeling fulfilled in what we're doing in our life. So the first thing is risk. In startup world, it's all about burning the boats, going all in. You got to go big or you got to go home. And so anytime that you have high opportunity costs because you're a doctor, a lawyer, you spend a lot of time or a lot of money in school to get a degree or an advanced degree, it feels very scary. So there's a massive amount of risk that a startup requires you to do. What I do, what I say to do instead is doing what's called a side bet, where it's something that you can work on the side of your job that has the potential to compound into something big enough to help you quit your job. But you only quit after it compounds enough where it gets to the side where you can replace your income parallel to the job that you're currently working on. So a startup says burn the boats. A side bet says bullets and then cannonballs. And so with the risk, because you don't have to quit your job to see if you have something that works, it's much less risky than what is required for a startup. Plus, this is a badass little boat that I drew. Two is money. How much money do you stand to make? Startups are very boom or bust. You either become a billionaire or you go bankrupt. So there's a high degree of variance between the potential outcomes. A side bet is about starting something small and letting it compound. So it's about finding something, usually a digital product that you can do, that you can see if there's demand for. And as you see that demand exists, you can put more and more resources allocated into it. A startup is nothing like that. A startup is about burning $1 million to see if there's product market fit, and build it and they will come. A side bet is about what is already out there, what do people already want, and how can I build my version of that can capture the demand that I can have for myself. The third is control, how much control you have. In a startup, it's very capital intensive to start and scale. And so you end up raising money and giving up a lot of the control and the ownership of it to investors and to partners and to employees. So that way y'all can go on this massive journey together. A side bet is all about doing capital efficient things that don't cost that much money to get started. And so you end up owning most or all of it. My first side bet that I ever did, my wife and I, we owned it all together, and we never needed to give ownership to any of the employees. We could do it without partners, and it costs very, very little money in order to get started. And then the fourth thing is purpose, your purpose, what you like to do, what you enjoy doing. Most people think about startups. The purpose is just to attack a big potential market and to make the most amount of money as possible. What you find, because I've talked to a lot of these people after they sold their company, is that they start a startup because they feel like they haven't found their purpose. And then 5 years later, they're richer, but they still feel like they haven't found their purpose. So they're still not figuring out the purpose yet, because the startup is about attacking a potentially lucrative market, and that's it. A side bet is very different than that. The money is important, but it's also about something that you are enthusiastic about, something that you feel like is close to what your purpose is, where your unique skills meet the world's deep needs. And it's a much more creative, creator style endeavor than just building a product that you can make the most amount of money for and sell over and over again. And so, in that process of you creating a product, you get so much closer to your purpose because you are creating again and you are having fun again, because that's one of the key things in order to have a side bet. And so, when I was in my law firm job and was totally set on doing this startup, and I quit my job and I moved my family across the country, within 6 months of that startup, it looked like everything was going to crash and burn. And luckily, my wife and I, in that moment, decided to do something very quick in a weekend, and we started a digital product that allowed us to make money in the short term and grow both at the same time. And so, if you're thinking about entrepreneurship and what's your path into entrepreneurship, particularly if you have a job that creates a high opportunity cost in order for you to pursue entrepreneurship, then think about doing something on the side of that job that has the potential to scale big enough to help you quit that job. So I actually have a video on how to find your individual side bet and what you can do to focus on side bets instead of startups. Check that out right here, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.